I'm Kay Stice. I've been a business school professor for 35 years and have taught at business schools all around the world. You can learn more about me and about my brother, Jim, at our website, sticelearning.com. If you learned something interesting in this current event video, please remember to like it and subscribe to our channel. On July 7th, 2021, I read an article stating that $5.4 trillion in mutual fund investments were based on the S&P 500 index. And if you read investment fund evaluations, you often see references to this S&P 500 index. So, what is the S&P 500 index? Now remember that a key aspect of investing is that we can reduce our risk through diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. But that can be kind of tough. Let's say I've got $3,000 to invest. It's kind of tough to take that $3,000 and split it up and invest a little bit here and a little bit there and spread it out among 25 or 30 investments. An investment fund company helps me do this diversification for a fee. Now there are different types of investment funds: index funds, managed funds, private equity funds, hedge funds. Let's focus on an index fund. Think of an index fund as a computer. I send in my $3,000 to the index fund and I say, I want you to invest this according to a mathematical rule. A popular index fund mathematical rule is this: pick the 500 largest companies in the United States and just spread out my $3,000 investment among these 500 companies. Don't try to pick which companies you think are going to do well. Just invest based on that mathematical rule. Index funds are very popular because their management fees are very, very low. I've seen index funds with fees as low as 0.04% per year, meaning if you invest $10,000 in an index fund, you're only going to pay $4 to have that $10,000 investment guarded and managed for an entire year. That's a very low cost. Index investing is ideal for people who just want to put their money in and let it sit there, slowly growing over time. The most popular type of index fund is called the S&P 500 index. S&P stands for Standard & Poor's, which is just the name of a company. 500 represents the 500 largest companies in the United States. The S&P 500 index is a common performance benchmark for all investment funds. If I'm managing an investment portfolio, I want to at least beat the S&P 500 index. Investors say the following: how did the investment manager do compared to the S&P 500 index? If that investment fund can't beat a strategy of just randomly investing in the 500 largest companies in the United States, maybe I should just find another fund. Using the S&P 500 index as a benchmark is very common. For example, if you look at the annual report of Berkshire Hathaway, each year Warren Buffett gives a comparison of the performance of his investments to that of the S&P 500. From 1965 through 2020, an investment in the S&P 500 would have generated an annual return of 10.2%. By comparison, that same investment in Berkshire Hathaway would have generated an annual return of 20.0%. That's great over that time period, but if you look at just the past few years, Berkshire Hathaway hasn't done so well. In 2020, the S&P 500 returned 18.4%, whereas Berkshire Hathaway returned just 2.4%. In fact, in his 2013 letter to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders, Warren Buffett wrote that he advised the trustee who would manage his estate for his wife after Warren Buffett's death. He told the trustee to invest 90% of the estate's assets in an S&P 500 index fund. Okay, so how well do professional investment fund managers do compared to the S&P 500 index? Not very well. For the years 2006 through 2020, the S&P 500 index benchmark beat an average of about 60% of actively managed funds, which are focused on large companies, such as those included in the S&P 500. Another way to think of this is that a person randomly selecting a subset of the 500 companies in the S&P 500 would expect to beat the index half the time. Actively managed funds on average do worse than this. But what about the ones that do better? Alas, the evidence also suggests that success in one year does not predict success in following years. An investment fund that happens to beat the S&P 500 index in one year is less than 50% likely to beat it again the next year. In other words, it appears that investment success relative to the S&P 500 index is primarily accidental or random, and beating the S&P 500 index in one year does not make a fund more likely to beat the S&P 500 index in the next year. The S&P 500 index is the most common benchmark for evaluating the performance of an investment, and evidence suggests that it is rare indeed for an investment fund manager to beat the S&P 500 index on a consistent basis. Warren Buffett's investment advice: don't try to beat the S&P 500 index, join it. I hope you enjoyed this current event. Please remember to like this video, share it with a friend who needs to understand what you and I now know, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.